On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is extremely dissatisfied and 10 is very satisfied, what do you think modern marketers think about the current state of the measurement marketplace? Sadly, I think you got the hot seat. So, Marielle, do you want to start?
Thanks, Deepak. No. Okay. So when I think of this question, I think of answering it in two possible ways, right? First, this is on a scale of 1 to 10. I'd say like negative 100. How is it that it's 2023 and we are still trying to figure out how to reconcile siloed linear and digital ecosystems for a unified measurement plan? We've got ChatGPT, ManSense is on the moon, and we're still figuring this out, right? So in that like broader respect, it's completely dissatisfying. On the other hand, having been in measurement for quite some time, having seen where we've come from, where we are now, and where we're going, I'm a little less miffed, I'd say, right? So I'm much more optimistic at the change that has been transpiring over the last several years, because there has been change. It has, albeit at a glacial pace for many, particularly for some of our clients. But there is movement. And, I think at OM&G, we've adopted, have early relationships with VideoAmp. So we've understood that there has been a need for aligning linear and digital. But there's a long way to go. We are on that path, but a lot of these solutions need to be brought to maturity.
So mine is 100, heading up towards 5. It's better than nothing.
With my measurement hat, I'd say maybe closer to 7.
Cool. Okay, that's progress. Joshua.
I'll keep it tight. I'd say mostly dissatisfied. I wouldn't go down the path of optimism because we've been burnt every time we get optimistic.
So staying thoroughly pessimistic.
So saying thoroughly pessimistic.
Your expectations are not dashed.
Yeah, we're not going to be hopeful that anything's going to be solved anytime soon.
And why? What's the problem?
What's the problem? I think you've got a mix of vested interests who've got no real desire to absolutely solve the problem.
Okay, I think we'll return to that. Lou.
So, drawing on my experience being client-side for many decades, I would say that the problem which is driving the dissatisfaction is explainability. Every other line of business inside of an enterprise can answer the very simple question, if you give me $1, I will return this much ROI. And because of all the issues that we all know very well, and some of which were just exposed here, we tend to answer that question with, well, it depends, a range between 2% and 25%. I really can't say, depending upon the channel mix. And you watch the CFO, the COO, and the CEO glaze over, and they start to say, what's wrong with this person? We run a business. You can't tell me the return on the biggest investment you make? Do I have the right talent? So the dissatisfaction is somewhere on a continuum between job preservation and explainability. And if you think about it, any one of us could end up in that conversation and really, spend 3 interesting hours with each other debating all the methodologies and modalities. There's no elevator pitch. There's no consensus. And so I think what we need to do is to really start over, and we'll get into this in the panel today, and think about a few things that get us to shorter answers and less in the weeds. So it's a -10 right now, going to -20 as budgets continue to come down.
I knew this panel was going to be punchy.
So I'll go next. So we didn't discuss the answers before. So I was the one being a data and analytics guy who wanted to tell that it's really poor. But hearing all the response, I think I feel I should give an optimistic view to it. So I was probably almost 10 years back, I was doing marketing analytics at Coca-Cola. Now I lead the data and analytics solutions team at Marsh Wrigley. So if I were to look at the last 10 years, there has been a lot of improvement when it comes to measurement. I think that is something collectively all of us can agree to it. I think the areas where, I'll highlight 3 areas where I would love for the measurement to improve. I think, as Lou mentioned, when you ask for the dollars, all the general managers, the CFOs are asking this question. If I have one additional dollar to invest in a brand, would I put it in trade? Would I put it in shopper marketing or consumer promotion? Or would I put it in media? So as an internal, that's how we think about where to make the strategic investment. Now, in advanced markets like North America or in UK to extent in Europe, we have enough data points to explain why we should be doing the right kind of investment in these markets. So we have a multi-level measurement that we have established in place. So the faster we are able to give this answer, where is that one additional dollar that you're going to implement? I think that is going to be very important. So in many cases, what we are seeing is that so the data lacks quite a bit. When I need a update on the ROI or incremental ROAS in a weekly basis or a monthly basis, if I am getting the data after 6 months, it doesn't help the cost. So that's one thing. So the strategic resource allocation. The second thing, the retail media networks. So you talk to many of the retail media networks, they'll tell you, hey, here is the ROAS of 1200%, which is happening, right? When it comes to RMNs, they have a more sophisticated measurement mechanism with the way they are integrated to their sales engines as well. So that's something the industry needs to keep in mind.
And just briefly, you're sitting in the middle of one of the most sophisticated marketing organizations in the world. You've got very sophisticated approaches in terms of thinking about effectiveness, in terms of allocating investment, and you're well serviced in some markets. Has the TV measurement marketplace kept up with your needs, do you think?
I think there is a lot of opportunity out there when it comes to the recency of the data, the transparency, and the consumer perspective into the data that we are getting. So there is a significant opportunity which is sitting out there. And as you would imagine, see, as business leaders, we need to defend the investment and we need to prove a short-term ROI or a long-term ROI. What is it? Is it driving a household penetration, etc.? I think unless until we are able to prove that out, it can become really challenging. So there is a long way to go when it comes to TV measurement.
Okay, that's a really great initial set of perspectives to get the ball rolling. Should we spend some time just talking very quickly about what we mean by measurement? Lou, I can see you nodding. When you think about measurement, what are the different buckets of measurement you think about? What are we trying to measure and how from a marketer point of view?
I think that's a great question because I've noticed over my career, people tend to conflate the different disciplines into one furball, and they're very different expertise. So imagine an L-shaped framework that goes like this, the L on its side. Across the top, obviously, you've got analytics, you've got research, and you've got measurement. As you move down the measurement line, the broad buckets that I look at are aggregate and deterministic. And I think a lot of the tension we're talking about now is that, I was the president of the MTA fan club for 10 years. I thought multi-touch attribution was going to change the world. I was president and COO of a trade association, and we were putting 75% of our research budget against proving out MTA. And, then a variety of things happened. We saw, for largely well-intended reasons, this rise in privacy legislation. We saw the consumer increasingly wanting to make sure that their consent choices were being respected. We saw companies take advantage of that, I'm choosing my words carefully, and deprecate cookies. And, I think deterministic measurement now is somewhat constrained to things like experiments, or where you've got a partnership with an RMN and they have a partnership with a CTV, and you can stitch across and follow your customers through those upper funnel and lower funnel environments. But I think what we're seeing, I'm going to use a term which is going to show my age. I think we're seeing a migration back to triple M, but it's not your mother's triple M. It's not the market mix modeling of old. I think we're seeing more dynamic triple M, AI-informed triple M, and aggregate measures that can start to do the things that were important in my role, which was to justify budgets to the C-suite. Now, my team's role was to justify channels to the lines of business. So you do need some very robust experimentation where you get signal. But I'll end my very long answer to your very short question with saying this. Marketers owe this ecosystem some signal of their own. What is our priority and what can we set aside? And I see too much, just measure everything and we'll figure it out later. You can't afford to do that. You won't attract talent to your organization to do that, and you'll get lost in the sauce. Measure what matters, agree on a currency, and build your framework.
Wow, Lou, great answer. I feel obliged at this point to reference the fact that industry legend Bill Harvey will be presenting our paper on MMM and these developments shortly at today's summit. So do be there.
One of the smartest people in the industry, be here for that.
Is going to be standing room only. Deepak, I can see you nodding. Are you on the same page, A, about the kind of framework that Lou introduced, but also about where we're seeing progress?
Yeah, so when it comes to, so we have a multi-level measurement strategy moving from strategic to tactical. The strategic is like, how can we have an integrated resource allocation between trade, shop, or media, as an example, at a high level, which the CFO takes a call. The next level of measurement goes to MMM, or we call it the agile market mix modeling. So not the old school MMM is what I would say, which gives you results once a year or twice a year. So things have changed. So MMM is the second level. Third one is dynamic performance dashboards when it comes to digital. So if you think about our media strategy, we talk about addressable, biddable, and integrated brand experience. So how can we get more performance on a daily basis? How can we integrate the APIs from a lot of the media players integrated into our dashboard so that people can understand how the decisions are made? So in summary, I think it should be a multi-level measurement. And I think the old school technologies the methodologies can be used, leveraging new technology to improve the recency and frequency.
Joshua, what's your take?
I mean, my hot take is I sort of broadly agree with everything that they've said. The subtext to all of it is, and Deepak touched on it with the word transparency, the absence of transparency is the thing that's fundamentally undermining the ability to deliver on that promise.
And just to unpack that a bit, we had a very interesting discussion yesterday about the kinds of institutional arrangements that support and facilitate transparency. When you say transparency is a concern, what are you talking about? What do you mean?
I want to, like, at the end of the day, I want to know what audience my ads were delivered against. I want to know where they were, fully transparently know where they were, and have the right to optimize in and out of them. There should be no opacity or hidden agenda on ad delivery.
Got you. And the dissatisfaction at the moment is
that too many companies use privacy regulation as a shield for illegitimate behavior. Right. So privacy regulations don't necessitate or require opacity, but people use privacy regulations as an excuse to be opaque.
Got you. We're going to come back to privacy because it is the big issue. I hope you caught the previous panel. Mariel, let's talk multi-currencies then. So
Yummy.
You've been incredibly immersed from a variety of different roles in the current TV transition to a more complex, interesting, innovative, competitive currency space. From a marketeer's point of view, why should we be optimistic about this transition?
Because we need it, right? I don't need to wax poetic around why small panels are insufficient to be able to measure the viewership behavior that we are seeing today. This is a measurement conference. You guys all know this. The fact that we're still leaning on those panels to measure, plan, transact is absurd, right? I think and I mentioned before at OMG, we had established an early relationship with VideoAmp because we knew we needed to bring these the holistic video system into a more holistic investment and marketplace. The time is now, right? The shift has happened. We're not waiting for people to go from live to on demand. That's all. That ship has sailed. What we need now is a unified measurement solution that can look at both sides of the house. And our clients have already been looking at, yes, we've had the incumbent for broad demo measurement, but we've also been looking at VideoAmp for audience deals as well. And we understand, those of us who are trying to move the ecosystem know that this is a seismic shift, right? Like, I get lost with restaurant menus. I understand that options can be confusing. When you have one road, no one gets lost, right? But in order to move this industry forward, we need to be able to accept the new currencies and multiple currencies at that. But this is why things like the JIC are exceedingly important, right? Like, if you are now going to be asked to root for more than one team and teams of your choice, you have to make sure those teams are playing the same game and playing by the same rules. So something like the JIC or the Joint Industry Committee is going to help you establish those standards, set those parameters, and help our marketers understand where the next step is going.
Agreement or disagreement from a panel? I can see you nodding, Lou.
I agree with everything Mariel said. I think my biggest frustration, and I say this having only ever been a client in this industry up until recently, is I don't think clients are actually arming you to go into those conversations and say, if you don't give us a standardized currency, we won't do business with you. And the reason they're not is they themselves can't agree with it. I came from a large multi-line bank, and every one of my 4 internal lines of business had a different way of measuring outcomes, and they were very different. And it drove the agency nuts. And depending on the situation, things were valued very differently. So part of the deal is, and I say this with, respect as someone who's been a client my whole life and relied on agencies to get everything done, we can't outsource the thinking to the agency and help them hope that they will come to the right conclusion. We need to direct them and say, make this happen, not because they need a direction, but they need the mandate to have the conversations to accelerate with vendors. And that's the only thing I would add to your answer.
Joshua?
No, I mean, wholeheartedly agree. I would say, I think, and with all respect to my portfolio of clients, they all have a different measurement criteria. They all have different standards. They need to come to the party as well. And perhaps it's beholden to agencies. We need to force them, stop the nonsense. We're not going to solve the problem unless you come to the party as well.
And there is one perspective that we hear quite a lot of, particularly on the sell side, is that for decades, TV has been brought on broad sort of age and gender demos, but advertisers don't want that. And as soon as they understand the enormous value of buying against advanced audience targets in the TV space, a lot of them will migrate wholesale, and these new currencies will make that easier and facilitate those kinds of transactions. Deepak, do you hear those stories and think 100% that's absolutely right, or are you a little bit more?
Yeah, see, I think, I just want to ask a question, so I'll have a detailed answer to it. How many
dual moderators?
Yeah. How many of you guys here are from a brand side?
Say again, sorry. How many?
I think from the brand side, how many people from the audience are? Can I get a quick show of hands? Okay, so really few. So I'm going to humor you with a story. Okay.
Go for it.
So this is on the unified measurement idea. So we use this story to sell the importance of how to build a unified measurement system. So the Central American country, Honduras, it's prone to a lot of natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, etc. So in the 1930s and 40s, the US government collaborated with the Honduran government to build a bridge which connects two vast majority of the land. This bridge was successfully completed. It's called the Choluteca Bridge. This bridge was built to last. Now, years passed by, another hurricane hit the country called the Hurricane Mitch. There was a huge hurricane, there was a lot of flooding, and now the river changed its course. Now you have a bridge with no water under the bridge. No, we generally tell this story to our leadership team to talk about how to build a measurement system from a brand standpoint. In the past, we could have built system which was built to last, but now we have to build systems which are built to adapt. Building to adapt is very important when you need to have a unified measurement system. So what does that mean? Now, if you have to build adaptability, some part of the measurement system which the brand owns, they need to own it. The data engineering, the data strategy, that layer the brand needs to own. They need to own the data. How they do the measurement, the elasticity, the response curves. I mean, you cannot simply outsource it to another party. You need to own it. Then only you will be able to keep on adding new and new data sources so that the adaptability keep on improving. When the first party data comes in, when the second party data comes in, you can easily ingest that and build a connected system. Now, wherever we are seeing when we build a connected ecosystem in the right way, we are improving the measurement standards, measurement quality. We are able to do better partnership with our media partners as well, media agencies as well. And wherever we have taken a different case where we have bought in a black box solution, just waiting for them to give the best answer that we can give, it does not work. So I think depending on, in a large organization, depending on the divisions, depending on which geography, we might have taken different decisions, but where we have decided to own it, build to adapt it, we have been really successful.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So I think what you're saying is that you have increasingly sophisticated requirements of measurement and you want to bring your data analytics to bear on your TV ad buys. And if the multi-currency transition supports and facilitates that, bring it on.
Correct. And I think there is some aspect of it the brand should own it.
So if we're talking transparency then one thing we have to touch upon is the role of the MRC, which is the kind of US marketplace's vehicle for delivering transparency. I hear very different views from agencies and marketeers about the role of the MRC. On the one hand, they enormously appreciate the rigor of the accreditation process. It's hugely valuable. It's way more detailed than 90% of marketeers want to get into, but you kind of know that once something's been through that process, it's relatively robust at the other side of it, is the kind of cliche you hear. On the other hand, we've got a more complicated marketplace. There's lots of transactions happening on non-MRC accredited solutions, and nothing seems to be falling over or breaking as far as most people can tell. And the process seems a bit complicated and maybe overly detailed, and maybe it stifles innovation a bit, is the other kind of cliche you hear. Joshua, you brought up the transparency point. What do you think marketers think about the role of the MRC? Is it the kind of process they want? Do they want it supercharged? Do they want it faster? Do they want it different? Or do you think mostly they have no clue?
I mean, this is a dangerous question to ask me. I'm feeling I'm going to give a very career-limiting response. I mean, candidly, I'll just be honest. The only thing you can be in life is honest. I think most marketers view the MRC as something that's necessary. I actually think it's basically performance theatre. So there you go. That's the career-limiting statement. I think clients expect they require the MRC with no understanding of what it really does or delivers, which is why they trade everywhere anyway. And I don't think the MRC is highly effective at delivering what it needs to deliver to the marketplace, full stop. So if I was a client, God forbid that ever happens, but if I was a client, I would not require MRC certification because I don't believe it actually delivers any real value.
Marianne, I'm sure this is the question you've been desperate to answer.
Well, there are a lot of other questions I'd rather answer other than the MRC question, but we're here. I don't disagree with that, right? Like, I think that clients for sure hear the acronym MRC, and it's a safety blanket, right? Like, sticker approved, it's MRC accredited, then that means it's good and it's safe and I can use this. What they don't realize, to Joshua's point, is that there are a lot of products that are in the marketplace that aren't MRC accredited that are used for their business all the time, right? So they hear Nielsen is MRC accredited, but we're also using DAR, and that's not MRC accredited. So yes, OMG, we support MRC accreditation. We encourage partners and vendors, measurement companies to seek it out, but it's not a requirement for us for transaction, right? It's a long, to your point, long, laborious, expensive process. And as I keep saying, the time is now, right? Like MRC does, George and his team, they do a wonderful job at ensuring that these companies are executing in the way that they say they're going to execute, right? But that's not going to prohibit me from using that product to transact if it doesn't get that blessing right out of the gate.
Lou, anything to add?
Yeah, as a longstanding former MRC board member, I would simply say Marielle's right that what George and Ron Pinelli and the team are trying to do is great, but it's a big world and they're a small team and they're not going to save us. I think the acronym you want to ask us about is not MRC, but SPO, because we have a real burning platform there. Just one little highlight from the recent ANA programmatic transparency study that I was involved in. The average study participant who had an inclusion list had 6,000 vendors on the inclusion list that they had approved for viewability and for measurement. The average participant in the study ran on 44,000 websites because of the secondary and tertiary and ongoing auctions in programmatic. So we talk about refining measurement, and 38,000 websites on average that were not measurable and accountable on average, where the advertising wasn't viewed on average, are running our media that can't be measured. It was 14% of the investment, which is not insignificant for these people. And on top of that, there were 21% of impressions were delivered on made for advertising sites, which are the worst of the worst. So as we work on the issues around measurement, we have to work on the issues around signal quality, because programmatic is not just a media transaction environment. It is the primary source of signal. According to Statista, this year, 93% of display impressions, and I know none of us run display anymore. We're all 100% video, right? But 93% of display impressions in this country this year will go through programmatic. And the vast majority of impressions are going in places that we can't measure.
It's a great point. I mean, because TV is to your point as well, TV is changing fast, and the institutional arrangements which ensure that buyers get the ad placements that they're buying and that deliver transparency have to evolve too, but they have to change quickly. But these are hard processes to change sometimes. We need a lot of work. I'm sensitive to time. I had one other big topic I want to sort of bring up, which is, again, something else we hear a lot about in the kind of measurement space in our work at SIM, and that's data collaboration. So the story we hear is that big marketing organizations are sitting on huge, shiny pools of first-party data, which they're desperate to leverage in support of their ad buys, and that they're investing heavily in clean room infrastructure, and that these first-party data pools are going to drive all of their ad buys going forwards, with a little bit of agency modeling on the side to pick up a few groups that they haven't captured data about yet. Is this an accurate meme, Deepak?
I think as an organization, we need to go significantly further to improve our consumer data platform. So there is a lot of, we have made progress. We have done some fantastic experiments. There is a significant value there. So the value case is proven within the organization. But are we ready for prime time? So there is a long way to go is what I would say. Now, when I talk to my industry peers, there are CPG companies have a significant number of individual IDs which they are tracking, and I think there are organizations who have made a lot of progress. Now, there is one market for us where we have a 3-digit million individual IDs which we are tracking, which is China. And I think
100 million IDs.
So more than 100 million unique IDs actually in China. So I think there are markets which is the CDP is going to be the biggest factor for driving the buy. I think are we there in the US, UK? I don't think so, but we are making a lot of good calculated investments there.
So I'm just going to short answer. A friend of mine, Brigitte King, who is the Chief Digital Officer of Colgate-Palmolive and one of the extraordinary industry thinkers, she said on a panel not too long ago, I have restructured my programmatic media teams to focus on data quality first and ad value second, because we see that as the primary benefit of advertising and programmatic. Now, that was the first time I heard anybody say that out loud in such a fulsome way. And I think she's ahead of the curve, and maybe she's way ahead of the curve. But I do think at some point in the not too distant future, the quality of the data to inform the quality of the generative AI solution, the quality of the audience, the quality of the creative that addresses that audience's need state is going to become more important than the low price CPM of the advertising media. And I'm waiting for people to throw stuff at me, but I think that's the future.
Brief sidebar, at 11:45 today, the team from TrueSet will be presenting their study on data quality, followed by a fascinating panel with a lot of leading agency folks talking data quality and exactly that issue. So thank you for trailing that. Joshua.
Okay, so I'm going to riff on data quality, but I'm going to say if there is actually a meme cartoon about, brand marketers with massive data sets, it's there because it's an absolute joke. I think everybody, if you go back 3 years, everybody was going to build first-party data sets because they're like, everything's deprecating, I need to own first-party data. I think people are waking up to the reality is not everyone has a legitimate reason to collect first-party data. And I would say the rise of everyone becoming now a retail media network is there's only a handful of people that actually have legitimate rights to first-party data. And that's why the recommendation I go out to with most clients is think about smart strategic partnerships and who has legitimate rights to access data, whose first-party data is resilient to privacy regulation changes or changes in consumer behavior, and resistant to changes in platform policies that might suddenly deprecate something that you rely on.
And briefly, privacy. We had a panel about it just a moment ago. I know it's a big issue you think a lot about. We spoke about it in the past. Are we doing enough to deal with privacy concerns when it comes to first-party data and its uses?
Simple answer is no, but I'll yield the floor.
We'll come back. Marielle, quick word from you. I mean, when Omnicom is going out to work with clients, are they bringing nice, shiny databases of first-party data which they want to use come hell or high water to power their ad buys?
Well, over the summer, is it Cannes or Con? We announced a multi-party clean room with Albertsons, and this was an amazing feat for us because what it was able to do was take that first-party consumer purchase data, combine it with VideoAmp measurement data, combine it with our friends' viewership data at NBCU, Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount, to really understand both sides of the planning and the measurement and activation optimization process, right? So in that respect, and that's kind of like not spicy enough for some of the the commentary here. It's just, the clean, good, fun way of how we've been doing business in that respect. And we see that that type of approach getting, more and more prevalent as our business and first-party data clients are more willing to share that in a privacy compliant way.
So it's a mix.
Can I just jump in on the privacy question? I took your lead. I think that we really have to, on the client side, start over. Yeah, I'm using that word, and rethink our entire approach to the marketplace, including how we construct our CDP and our first-party privacy policy around consent by design. Not compliance by design, consent by design. And I think until the industry harmonizes that, you're going to have endless towers of Babel. I want to partner with the RMNs, but we have a slightly different privacy policy, and my legal and compliance team say we can't do that. We need it scalable, we need it modular, but we need consent first. And then we need to re-rationalize everything in our tech stack based on that. I think this is a C-suite level activity.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings this particular panel to an end. We're going to say thank you in just a moment. Quick heads up about what happens next. We're heading into the Choose Your Own Adventure part of the morning. So from 11:45, we'll be in the breakout group. There are 3 tracks, 3 incredible sessions running. Feel free to choose what you want. They'll be a little bit more interactive. They're kind of flat open spaces, so feel free to chime in. I think everybody's ready for questions and discussion. In the meantime, but we're starting at 11:45 sharp. In the meantime, though, I want to say an enormous thank you to these 4 enormous brains for giving us some insights into marketers' perspective on the measurement marketplace. Thank you all so much.